We'll get started. Our next presentation for today is Chalice Mining, which is an ASX-listed explorer focused on the high-grade PGM and base metals Julimar project in Western Australia. To speak to us today on Chalice, we have Managing Director and CEO Alex Dorsch. Alex, it's great to have you here.
Thanks, Raj. Morning, everyone. Here to present Chalice Mining, which doesn't have a huge profile here in North America, but obviously great to be over in this part of the world sharing a very good news story that's happened fairly recently in Western Australia on the other side of the planet. As Raj said, the Julimar nickel copper PGE project is a very recent discovery and a very attractive one, and certainly is grabbing some attention. This is our usual forward-looking statements, disclosures. These are available on our website or on the ASX platform if you wish to read in full. Who is Chalice? We've been listed since 2006 on the ASX. We're now a globally recognised name in exploration. You know, we're really in the business of finding not only mineral deposits but mines. And our team has got their names on a number of mines all around the world, in particular nickel sulfide assets. We are a high-performing, results-steering team. We are very pragmatic people, and our purpose here is to find these critical metals that are required for the world to decarbonise. And we have our foot on a brand new mineral province in Western Australia, which is obviously one of the leading jurisdictions in the world for exploration and mining. We are ASX 200 listed, so we joined the ASX 200 in late 2021. Our market cap today is approximately 2.2 billion Australian dollars. We have a strong balance sheet, about 97 million as of the end of last year. BlackRock have recently become a substantial shareholder. We're well covered by Australian research institutions. And we also do get a lot of corporate interest in what we have, just given the size of the jurisdiction we operate in. So what is it? Julimar is, like I said, a major new polymetallic critical minerals project in WA. As you can see on the map on the right-hand side there, we are just on the outskirts of Perth. This is about an hour and 15 minutes away from the arguable capital of mining in the world. It's a very conveniently located new Tier 1 discovery. Quite phenomenal that it took until 2020 to find this, but it was just enough laterite cover in this area to obscure and hide this layered mafic, ultramafic intrusive complex. There's about 30 kilometres of strike length to this complex, so it is a very, very big beast. And we really are exploring just on the tip of it at the southern end. And we have drilled about 1,000 drill holes over the last 3 years. We've had between 7 and 10 drill rigs operating here for 24 hours a day. We spent about 160 million Australian dollars in 3 years defining a 350 million tonne resource at almost 0.6% nickel equivalent, or if you think in PGE terms, 1.8 grams per tonne palladium equivalent. It's a high confidence category already. We are about to update that resource as well and add about 200 drill holes to that number, so it is growing rapidly over time. It contains about 11 million ounces of precious metals, 560,000 tonnes of nickel, predominantly sulfide nickel, 360,000 tonnes of copper, 54,000 tonnes of cobalt. You just do not see assets of that scale being found in the world today. Usually they've been found in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Lately, not so many. So we are working, like I said, on an update there. Our strategy here is to progress exploration over that full 30-kilometre belt whilst we look at strategic partners to come into the asset and help us develop this starter project there at the Gonville deposit. These are obviously critical metals in high demand. It's 100% ours. There's no royalties. We staked this ground ourselves and made this discovery from what was a totally conceptual greenfield play. So it's got very compelling upside, fantastic access to infrastructure, and obviously world-class infrastructure being near Perth in Western Australia. It's a strategic asset, so those who know the palladium and the nickel market know that Russia is one of the largest players in these metals. 40% of the world's palladium comes out of Russia. That is effectively off the market. South Africa is the other big player in palladium, 38% of the market, and that is a deteriorating situation, very sad situation in South Africa at the moment. This is gaining a lot of strategic interest from all sorts of government, all through industry, and especially since the Inflation Reduction Act, the nickel content in particular is gaining international attention through the entire value chain. The need to decarbonise will drive, demand for all of these metals. Probably don't need to talk too much about this because it's very well understood, but platinum and palladium sometimes get a little bit of a poor rap. I think it's obvious that hybrid vehicles are going to be here for many, many years to solve the decarbonisation gap. We cannot realistically all own electric vehicles, particularly in the developing world. So platinum and palladium are going to be around for a long time to keep those internal combustion engines getting leaner and leaner and greener, lower CO2, lower nitrous oxide emissions over time. So we're in a good place with this basket of critical metals. It's the fourth largest undeveloped nickel sulfide. So if you consider just the nickel content here, we are the fourth largest undeveloped nickel asset in Australia. Obviously the laterites in Indonesia, parts of Australia are much more challenging, typically much higher carbon intensity and much more capital required to develop these things. So Julimar is in a good spot. You can see there that Oz Minerals West Musgrave asset is about to be acquired by BHP, so we're in good company in the tier one space. And if you take into account all of our other metals, we end up the second largest undeveloped nickel sulfide asset because effectively it's 2 million tonnes of contained nickel equivalent. It's a tier one scale near surface resource as well. Very unusual to have high grade magmatic sulfides so close to surface. This is an orthomagmatic style of deposit, so not the typical chromite reef hosted PGE reef. This is magmatic, so a very dynamic emplacement here, Archean age. 350 million tonnes, like I said. The deposit is open. It strikes over 2 kilometres approximately at the moment. The resource pit is at this stage 600 metres deep. There is strong potential to keep pushing that larger. And as you can see, there's some drill holes on the left there that are now progressing into an underground category. So we're already investigating what comes after decades of mine life in an open pit method is likely to be a large-scale underground mine ultimately here as well. In terms of processing, this is not a complete picture yet, but there are lots of different ways, obviously, to tackle this polymetallic deposit. We're looking at a fairly conventional copper flotation stage to concentrate the majority of the PGMs into a copper concentrate. It's a very attractive copper con that we're able to produce. And then on the nickel side, we're looking at some different technologies to do some midstream processing. Obviously, the larger this resource gets, the more incentive there'll be to progress downstream. If you're familiar with Sudbury, Voisey's Bay, Norilsk, Jinchuan, these are typically vertically integrated assets. So we are on a pathway, I think, to become a vertically integrated mineral complex. The pathway that we see for the nickel and cobalt at the moment is going to MHP. So there's a strong interest from a whole range of battery and electric vehicle producers to get access to what will be substantial volumes of high-grade nickel cobalt intermediate product. The growth at Gonville is quite impressive. This is looking at a 3.5 kilometre section or strike length of the complex. You can see the host intrusions there. Gonville host intrusion is very, very large. It's about 2 kilometres strike length, about 1.6 kilometres of dip extent. You can see we haven't drilled out that intrusion just yet. We've drilled about maybe a third of the intrusion there, and Hartog and off the left-hand side of that page, there's another sort of 20 kilometres of that strike length, which is going to pinch and swell, and it's going to be variable, but we're already seeing strong evidence that this resource is going to grow substantially over time, and this is a very, very special thing. There's only a handful of occurrences like this on planet Earth. That Gonville-like geology, like I said, down the bottom of the page there is where the largely open pit resource is. That is on our farmland. We've acquired already the surrounding farmland there. We've spent about 40 million Australian dollars doing that. That secures the permitting pathway for us. We're confident this is a permittable, large-scale critical minerals asset. Then going north, we go into the Julimar State Forest. This is a vegetated area, slower to explore, but we have already drilled 90 drill holes over a 10-kilometre strike length, and we're getting some fantastic results, particularly around the Hooley prospect, which is emerging as a second discovery on the complex, and also the Dampier prospect, which looks very encouraging as well. So at least 10 kilometres of mineralised strike length here. A very compelling exploration story. We've got 5 rigs drilling on that complex at the moment, as well as obviously through the region. That's a look at the geophysics and the geochem, which proves, I guess, that this is a belt scale opportunity. This is completely untested effectively, so it's quite special to be involved in the effectively initial exploration of a new exciting province like this. You can see that there's some very attractive targets and very strong magnetic signatures all the way up the northern part of this belt. We also have evidence of magmatic sulfides up to 50 kilometres away from our deposit as well. So this will be explored now for decades, literally into the future. And then because this was the first major orthomagmatic sulfide discovery in the western part of WA, that has now opened up and totally re-rated the geology in the western part of the Yilgarn Craton. So for those who know these systems, where you want to find these things is within about 50 kilometres of Craton edges. So the Yilgarn Craton is obviously Archean age. That Craton edge is the conduit for this magmatism. So we've got literally hundreds of Julimar-like magnetic signatures and geophysical signatures that all need the very, very first drill hole. So there is, like I said, decades of significant exploration ahead here. We have a team of about 60 exploration professionals working for us. So we are one of the largest exploration players now in Australia, certainly anywhere in the base metals space. So what are we doing with the project? Obviously, we've got a resource update, like I said, coming within about a month. Then we're looking at a scoping study. The challenge with the scoping study at the moment is that the resource is just still growing and growing. So we need to look at really starter projects and then really look at sort of at the other end of the scale, how big could it ultimately be? But a lot of work going into preparing those studies as well as permitting the asset. For those who have been following the industry would know this chart very well. There is basically a dearth of big base metal discoveries happening around the planet. The post-World War II boom was a fantastic era for mineral exploration, some giant discoveries made, and then in the last 5 years you can see there's just negligible metal being found. So that is a problem. Even though we have the Paris Agreement, there's consensus on climate change, we are nowhere near finding enough of the metal to satisfy that demand. So world-class asset, world-class company. We've got a track record of discovery. We know what we're doing here, and there is significant upside to the assets that we have. And so thank you very much for your time, and I'll take some questions. Right.
Thanks, Alex. We do have time for some questions. First up, on your upcoming resource update, can you quickly touch on what the market should be expecting, whether there's potential for grade upside, going up the category, and also resource expansion?
Yeah, so we've got about 120 infill holes that are going to be included, largely to upgrade the starter or expected starter pit area to measured category. That's where some of our highest grades are, so we're expecting a nice sort of starter project there. You know, that is the material that we're going to be tackling in the early years. So we're going to get a small amount of material into measured with that 10-metre spaced infill that we've done. We're also converting a large amount of inferred resource into indicated. We've got indicated resources largely down to now 250 metres in pit, but the pit shell has potential to grow substantially as well, particularly at the northern end, because we do have a lot of step-out drilling that's going to be incorporated, about 80 drill holes that around the northern end of the resource that are going to be incorporated as well.
And a quick word on your metallurgical work. Is there more work need to be done, and anything you can touch upon on the recoveries of the various metals?
So we've done about 150 sulfide float tests, about 25 lock cycle tests over a range of different domains within the resource. That there are multiple different mineralogy styles and mineralization styles in this deposit, so we do need to go through each one and do some geomet domaining. So that work is going to progress through the PFS. We're getting reasonable recoveries at the moment using sort of the conventional grind size. I think what we're being driven to is finer grind to chase additional precious metals. We have, like I said, about 3/4 of the PGMs deporting to the copper concentrate, which is a fantastic place to be because we have a very marketable, high-value copper concentrate there. What we need to do is just keep iterating on test work on the nickel side, and there are a number of technologies out there that are really gaining a lot of attention. Obviously, KEL or Life Zone in Kabanga is getting supported by BHP. There are technologies as well in pressure oxidation here in North America that have been proven at demonstration scale. But yeah, we are really progressing that work very rapidly.
Thanks a lot for that, Alex, and all the best.
Thank you.